Well, hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Discover New Music podcast from us at Pelt Music. Shortly, we'll be chatting with Deaf of Me, who we recently featured over on our Discover New Music playlist on Spotify with their single Halo. But before then, the usual reminders from myself. If you would, please do follow Full Pelt on social media. We're on Facebook at Full Pelt and on Twitter and Instagram at Full Pelt Music. And again, if you would, please do hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, wherever you're watching or listening. Welcome to Jim and Rob from Deaf of Me to the Discover New Music podcast. How are you both doing today?
Hello. Yeah, good
Yeah,
man.
great. Thank you. Yeah, really
Thanks
good.
for having us.
Yeah, delighted to have you on. Obviously, really enjoyed everything that we've seen coming from the band so far, and it's an exciting time for you because obviously you've got a lot of great stuff coming up that we're going to start to work through. But on this podcast, we always say start off with the same feature. It's for obviously fans that aren't necessarily familiar with the band, Discover New Music podcast. Hopefully, there'll be some people discovering you through this. And for those that aren't aware, we always start off with what we call the origin story to give it a fancy kind of name. But yeah, basically, how did Deaf of Me come together? How did you start off?
Origin story. My mind went to like bitten by a radioactive spider for a second then. I wish that was the case. That'd be awesome. So uh, so the project really started like during lockdown, which I guess is a weird time to start a project, but when everyone had a lot more time on their hands. And it just started out myself like in my spare room writing piece of music to synth stuff really. It was like cinematic synth stuff. But it felt a bit weird to release that, so got some guitars on it and sent out a few demos. We had a very short, brief lineup for Death of Me for about a year that didn't really last. And then myself and Luke, bassist, we got in contact with Mike, who plays guitar. And Mike and Rob have been like childhood friends since forever. And then brought Rob into the fold. And then over the past like year and a half, we've just kind of completely transformed the sound and become what we are today, really. So if I was to kind of write a blurb for a movie or something, it'd be like two groups of childhood friends that have just kind of made this super group. And we've all played like in bands in the local scene and support each other's bands over the years, but this is kind of the first time we've all come together as a collective.
Yeah, beautiful story. It really is. And like you say, lockdown, in many ways, not normally, or I will say normally, it's not something, lockdown we've ever experienced before. But obviously, yeah, a number of bands that we've had on actually did form during that time. Because as you say, just that additional space and time that you had to create that perhaps wouldn't have existed without the pandemic. Obviously, yeah, don't always want to try and refer to it in a positive light because obviously it's a horrible, horrible time. But there was a lot of good that did come out of it, and obviously, Deaf for Me is one of them. So yeah, happy with that. And obviously, the most recent single we've had on our Discover New Music playlist is Halo. So we're going to touch on that next. And just delve a little deeper into Halo. So, what can you tell us about the song? What are the themes behind it, and how did it all come together for you?
Yeah. I don't know if you want to take that one, Rob, but I'm happy to if not.
I'm happy for you to talk about the themes. Themes
Okay,
definitely
cool.
all you.
Yeah, I mean, this was one of the first songs that I started to write really, and it took a long time. In fact, it was one of the last ones that we fully fleshed out. It just wasn't right. Like we had a completely different intro. Like, there was a lot more synths to it originally. So I guess sonically it did take a bit longer to get this one right. But I think the thing I love most about Halo is like it really brings through those like more post-hardcore elements, like bands that I personally grew up loving, bands like AFI, Sayasin, those kind of faster, more post-hardcore heavy bands. So it was really trying to bring that through a bit more as a collective when we were all together. I guess like lyrically, again, it was one of them ones that I wrote completely like maybe 2 weeks before we went into the studio. So I went through a bit of a bad time at the start of this year, through a bit of loss and a bit of grief, and it just felt like the right time to write something about that. And it just fit the mood of the song. So again, a bit cathartic, but yeah, that's kind of what the song touches about. Like as you can probably hear in the lyrics, kind of, you know, if this is the last chance you kind of get to say goodbye to somebody, you know, and kind of feeling guilty when you do move on. I think that's a big thing that people going through grief don't really talk about. Like, you feel guilty moving on yourself with your own life and kind of getting on with that when someone else has lost theirs. So it's kind of about exploring that a little bit more.
Yeah, and it's certainly relatable, isn't it? There's not a lot of shared experiences in this life, unfortunately, but one of the ones that there is, is a sad one, is grief and loss, because everyone will experience that at some point. And obviously, yeah, I think that always helps me connect with a song when there is more of a connection there. So, and I imagine that it, like I think touched on, a bit of a cathartic sort of experience to write that for you.
I only ever write about 4 themes, and they'll be the 4 themes that I think I'll write about till I'm dead. And it's just love, sex, death, or religion. Like, they're the only 4 themes I'll ever write about, because, like you say, you gotta write what you know to really believe it, but things that everyone can relate to together. So yeah.
Yeah, no, completely understandable. And just sticking with the single for a moment, because I always love to touch on the music videos, because I think music videos are a complete and utter lost art these days, and obviously don't get the attention that they deserve. So I always try and put the spotlight on them. And I just checked out the video for Halo again before we came on, and I just love the aesthetics of it. It just fits the song and fits the band so well, and works really like just perfectly. So obviously there'll be a link in the bio of the episode for listeners to be able to check it out. But how did you obviously conceptualize that video and then put it into practice?
I love the story behind the video.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we were looking for something that kind of, like you say, fit that vibe, because we'd done for the previous single, Your Heart the Casket, we'd done a very sort of performance oriented. I mean, this one's also quite performance oriented, but we wanted that set piece. We wanted some really good visuals that fit the song, and just really happenstance. Really, behind the studio where we record, there's a museum of the paranormal that's set up in Stoke, and the gent was really happy for us to go and have a look around and see what the crack was, and just some of the atmosphere he's got in there, and some of the set pieces he's got fit really well. So he was kind enough to let us record the video there, and it essentially gave us a kind of stage to have, a few scenes that we could really make work for the video. It was really cool, really good.
Yeah, I love when things just fall into place. Obviously, that was really, really lucky for you.
Yeah, I mean, I particularly liked how we'd got things like they had the sort of church vestibule that we managed to use, and it really fit some of the themes. And I just thought that some of the pieces he had in there would just fit perfectly into the vibe. It was great.
Yeah, definitely. And I say it just fits that whole aesthetic package around the band, which I always think, helps sets bands apart, because there's just so many bands out there and artists out there vying for quite limited attention these days. And there's a lot of bands that have that cool sort of aura and look about them that obviously are hitting harder with target audiences. And obviously I think being able to put a video like that out, kudos to you, because obviously it fits that really, really well. And I just love music videos, the complete lost art, as I say. And definitely listeners need to go and check that out. Click through in the bio and go and have a watch of that. And obviously Halo was the latest, as we said, up until the release of the EP kind of single that had come out. And obviously there's been a few. You're a new band, as you touched on. So I always just like to sort of get your thoughts on what you think the reaction has been like, because obviously in days gone by it was harder to gauge, because you had to almost wait to play a show to speak to audiences, or obviously read reviews in magazines. Social media makes everything instantaneous these days. So just how much attention have you paid, and what has been your thoughts on the reaction thus far?
God, it's hard to gauge it when you put it like that. I think we're very humbled. Like, it's been, everything that we've put out has had love and positive response, which is good.
Yeah.
It's encouraging. I think it's difficult, man, because I mean, as we're talking today, like, today is actually our second show ever as a band. So we're doing 2 shows, like a mini weekender this weekend. But prior to this, we've played 1 show. So we headlined at the Sugar Mill in Stoke, which is like a a 750 cap venue. You know, near enough sold out the bottom half of the venue. So I think that was like the first stamp really that things are going in the right direction, because, you know, to your point, like everything online is just instant gratification, like video views and all that kind of stuff. But I think when people actually want to come and see, you know, when you're not like dragging people, like there's always an element of that, right? You know, bringing your friends along and stuff. But when people genuinely are reaching out, wanting to come, like I think that was probably the most encouraging thing. And like I say, that was our debut show. So we got tons more in the pipeline, not to use that cliche line, but there's so many shows that are coming up, and we're now working with Royal Artists. Shout out Danny. So he's been booking some great stuff, some festivals and things next year. So hopefully should really start snowballing. But aside from that, like the press opportunities like this, speaking to people like yourself and being played on Radio 1 and being in Kerrang and all that kind of stuff is like, it's obviously really, really, really nice. But for me, it's not real until, you know, you're on that stage and you're seeing people. So I think that was the one for me, at least.
Yeah. I think to add to what Jim's saying, it's been such a kind of topsy-turvy way of doing things, because we're all used to kind of being in bands and like grinding from the support slots and doing all like loads of gigs and all that sort of thing. Whereas we kind of took the opposite approach, and we've put loads of work into getting the product that we want to have there. And I mean, it's kind of so important for us for that stage show. They're all part and parcel. So when we went into that first show, it did feel it was kind of quite. We put a lot of pressure on ourselves to get that kind of right. And then when we got there and it was full and it was a good show, it was just we were all just buzzing for the next one then. So it's been a really interesting journey in that sense. But I think we're all just excited to get some more shows under our belt and do some good stuff.
Yeah, it definitely seems to be an exciting time for the band. And yeah, I agree completely. And obviously Spotify metrics and likes on social media and all that kind of stuff like gets a lot of weight attached to it these days. But the most tangible metric there is are people turning up to the shows, and are they having a good time when they do? And obviously so far for you guys, you've had a hell of a start on that front, haven't you? So yeah, excellent. Absolutely love to hear it. And obviously that all leads to, on the 8th of September, your debut records EP coming out. Hell's Where You Make It, Love's How You Fake It is the title of the EP. Again, out on September the 8th. What can you tell listeners about the EP, and I guess what should they expect when they hit play for the first time?
I think it's just, for me, what I really wanted to achieve with it is like that blend of genres. Like we all love so many different genres of music, but there's like a couple that we collectively all kind of agree on, and I think our strengths shine through. So for me, I always wanted like a record where it was like you could have a heavy song, then a poppier song, then a heavy song and a poppier song, and a heavy poppy song. So it's kind of like 8 tracks of that. So if you just want the poppier stuff, just skip every other track. If you want the heavier stuff, you can go back a track. So it really is that kind of blend of like post-hardcore alternative rock, but then there's a lot of 80s influences as well. So like one of my favorite bands, probably my favorite band of all time, is Depeche Mode. So like proper 80s synth band. But it was trying to like, the challenge was there wasn't really a blueprint of what we were trying to follow for this. It wasn't like, oh, let's try and sound like this band because they do this, because it was kind of like writing the rule book from the start. So like there's an introduction on the record with like rain sound effects and things like that. Like all the best albums I listened to growing up, I'll reference AFI again, had those like amazingly long instrumental, intros with like cellos and things. So it was trying to blend all those things into a new modern way, but just not be afraid of like experimenting. Like the next single we're bringing out has like I don't even know how to describe the second verse, Rob, but like it's just not like anything else we've done before either. So hopefully people are just excited because it's just such a blend of different things.
Yeah, I mean, I think like for the new single that Jim's referencing, we've influences from the likes of, we were like, oh, we love this bit. That sounds like really Kate Bush. That's Ace, and we'd just go down sort of stuff like that, and it's just kind of like not being afraid to go, would this work? And instead of just sort of trying to pigeonhole it into a certain thing, just taking all those influences that we've had from wherever we've had them and combine them into something different, something a bit unusual.
Yeah, it certainly whets my appetite. So hopefully it is the for the listeners as well. I do love, um, yeah, just getting a bit of sort of experimentation into music these days, because it has all become a bit samey. And obviously the influences that you've just reeled off, I'm well on board with all of those, definitely. So yeah, really, really excited for everyone to be able to hear the EP, and just around obviously the recording process, as you sort of touched upon. You've all kind of been in bands before, obviously coming together in this one. Just how has that experience been for you this time compared to perhaps what you've experienced before?
I think it's probably been the most pleasurable recording and writing experience, just because, again, very lucky that we've kind of joined forces, and everyone, I think, brings someone to this band. There isn't really like a weak chain where it's like, oh, like, are they going to pull it out the bag on the day? Like, we've only got so much time in the studios, it's going to work. Like, I think it's just complete and utter faith in every one of us that we can do it. And it's, it's through those years of craft, it's those 10,000 hours that you put in to do it. But the recording process itself was, like, again, super easy, because our best friend, Sam Bloor, shout out Sam Bloor, runs Lower Lane Studios in Stoke. So he's been working with some wicked bands like Graphic Nature, Blanket, Black Coast, who are local band to us as well. But he's our best friend, so he always helps us out. He's kind of like the unofficial fifth member of the band. If something is shit, he'll tell you it's shit. And that happened a few times in the studio. So particularly with some of the lyrics, need to change that, dude. Not quite right. So it was kind of nice, because you're in a comfortable environment. You can take your time. It's literally down the road from us, which I think we try to do as much as we can ourselves in house with this band anyway. Like, all the artwork we do ourselves, all the logos, all that kind of stuff. Our other best friend, a chap called Tim Palin, he does all our videos for us. So, we're really trying to keep everything in that kind of local bubble, just because, like I said, it's the faith and assurance and the people can do a good job. So yeah, the recording process was great. I think we did it over two halves. So we recorded Your Heart the Casket and a track called The Long Lost Art to Never Falling Apart. We recorded those last June. So well over a year ago, we recorded those two tracks, and we've been sitting on them now for like a year and a half. But then we went back to the studio at the start of this year, so winter, and recorded the other 6 that made up the 8. So we did it over two halves. It was just, and I think it was just a bit of time finding our feet, like how we actually wanted the rest of the record to sound. Like, we had these 2 singles that we were always going to bring out, but like, how should the rest of us kind of sound as we were finding our feet? And I think we managed to do it, but it took a bit of a longer time to just get all those influences in and what we were trying to say. So, but it was great. It was a great experience, and it was mastered by Grant Berry. Again, he's mastered all our stuff, and he's done things like All Time Low, Def Havana, like these some of the biggest alternative and emo bands. So we were in really good hands when it came to like how it sounded sonically as well.
Yeah, no, you've definitely been looked after, and I think one of the most important things in that is having a friend that's what I would term as a critical friend. So they are a friend, but they are willing to say, you know what, like you say, this isn't good, this needs to change. Because sometimes that dynamic can work really well recording with friends, but other times, obviously, you can perhaps lose a bit of that critique and obviously added kind of weight and pressure to make sure it is actually as good as it can be. So, I mean, obviously, it sounds like you had a great time.
Yeah. To go back to sort of how Sam works, I love it. I think it's underrated having a producer like that. I think it's kind of a lot of bands, and I've done it before. You go into the studio and you record some stuff, and then you kind of get it back. You kind of reflectively go, oh, I wish I'd done that differently, or I wish I'd changed that. Whereas like with Sam, the first day when we recorded drums, we just spend a morning. Everyone else is bored, but me and Sam spend a morning just chatting drums and like tuning things up and going, oh, what about this snare? What about that snare? Okay, that's cool. And then it's not a process where it's sort of just going into and going, yeah, that'll do. it's much more. Well, no, come on, we can do that. We can get a better take than that. Let's have another go. And I think having those two sessions, like Jim was saying, we did it in two halves. Having those first two to kind of go in, take those tracks away, and go, oh yeah, that sounded really, really good. That was great. Now what do we want to do with these next lot of tracks? I think that was a really good kind of. It was like a sort of test run almost. I mean, we had those two singles there, but then it was kind of like, okay, great. Now we can go back with these lot, and we can build on that. It was great.
Yeah, no, I'm just absolutely love to hear the experience, and obviously the outcome of it. The EP coming out on September the 8th. Listeners need to check it out. Obviously, it's called a labour of love because you love what you're doing, but it is hard work. So obviously the fruits of those labels are going to be coming out, and obviously hopefully it will get the reception that it deserves. And one of the first opportunities for fans to be able to obviously come and hear them songs will be on the same day, because you've got your EP release show in Stoke again at the Underground on September the 8th. So what have you got in store for the attendees on that show? Will you be playing the EP in full, or
man. We're so excited to finally get this record out. Like I say, we've been sitting on some of these songs for well over a year and a half now, so it's definitely time. We've already started writing for the next record already, so trying to keep that traction going. But yeah, September the 8th, we're headlining the Underground in Stoke. Great venue, great people. It's about 400 cap venue, so it's going to be intimate if we can get everybody in there. We're being supported by one of my favorite local bands at the moment, a band called Mercury. You should definitely also check out. Wildly different to us in terms of genre, but just great musicians. They're kind of like, very, very grungy, almost Alice in Chains meets Nirvana, so they're wicked. But yeah, we're going to be playing the record front to back. Loads more props on stage as we try to be as theatrical as possible, as you've alluded to. And just I guess showing everybody what it sounds like live for everyone that didn't get the opportunity to see it at the last show. But we're going to be selling CDs. We've got new merch and all that kind of fun stuff as well that'll be online afterwards. But it's a celebration is the way we're kind of looking at it. This labor of love, and being able to share it with everyone is going to be great.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I encourage anyone listening that hasn't got a ticket for that yet to obviously grab one and head down to the Underground on the 8th of September and come along to that show. And I also encourage everyone to follow the band across social media. This is the bit where I always give out the social handles, and you've made my life pretty damn easy, because it is the same almost across the board. So Instagram and Facebook is Definitely Band, but on Twitter, or I should get used to calling it X now, shouldn't I? It's Definitely Band UK. But again, pretty simple, which is always really, really nice, because sometimes there's a load of underscores to read out and different capitalizations, all that kind of stuff. It's like, oh man. But yeah, that is the place. Obviously, these days we all stay up to date. So I would encourage listeners to follow the band on there to stay up to date with everything coming from them. You did kind of hint earlier, that there are more plans afoot in the future for live shows. Probably not ready to announce them yet, but listeners are going to get a good chance to come and see you, I would hope.
Yes, if everything goes to plan that's kind of been proposed, yes. Loads more stuff coming. We are touring in November, so I think we can talk about that. So that's going to be good. That'll be announced soon. Get an opportunity to come to places we haven't been just yet, but
the future is definitely. Yeah, the future is looking really, really bright, obviously, for definitely everything so far, that has come out, is really struck me, and I've been so impressed with like the whole package, that goes around it aesthetically, sonically, etc. So definitely encourage listeners to jump on board with the band. And that almost brings to close our chat. We always finish with the last the segment, which is always the same. It's called Setlist Science, having just touched on the live side of things. Basically, I'm a massive setlist geek. I love looking at set lists, and obviously I always love this portion of the podcast. So the main question at the moment is, how much importance do you place into the structure of your set lists, and have you got any rules that you tend to follow?
It's so funny you say that, because the amount of hours we spent deliberating over that first set list and where things were going to go. I think it's super important. I think now more than ever, like you say, like there's such a focus on everyone just digesting music digitally that when you get to a show, like it really has to make that impact. So that first song and that last song and all the stops in between have got to be, I think, more impactful than they've ever been before. Like it's just not throwaway anymore. So I think it's super important. And the lucky thing for ourselves, as I alluded to, like the record in itself is when we were piecing together how it's going to go and flow, like it almost is like a live set, you know. So there's an instrumental introduction that flows into Halo, which is the track we've already brought out, that flows into the next song. And then the end track like mimics the start of the first track. So you could actually leave it on a loop and it's like a record that never gets taken off. So it was trying to take that and do it in a live environment, which is why we put the record in that way in the first place. But yeah, we deliberated a lot on the set list, I would say, Rob.
We've nicknamed our bassist Luke the Setlist Gordon because he's and I think we've kind of got two. We've got set menu A and set menu B now that we're kind of quite happy with. But yeah, as Jim said, one thing that was really important to me when we were doing this this sort of live is because it's so atmospheric. What I really and I think I speak for all of us, what we really wanted to do is not have these kind of like awkward pauses or anything like that between songs. It's got to keep that immersion. It's got to keep you in the journey we're going on. So yeah, it's been really important as to how that's structured to kind of bring it to live. Definitely, yeah.
Well, there's literally an atmospheric synth in every millisecond of the set. There is not a blank piece. So like there's always something going on, which is it's been a challenge, but I think we've got to a place now where it's pretty cool.
Yeah, no, it really, really sounds fantastic. And I say, as a setlist geek, you've definitely passed the test in my eyes. Like you obviously you care, which I can always tell when I watch a band how much thought they've really put into it. And just to put a bow on the conversation, we've added in one final question recently because it became a bit of an internet theme or a meme, really, with obviously the peekaboo for adults. So encores, quite a simple question, yes or no?
I have two kind of views on this. So my view is as a watcher, a listener, someone that's going to see a band, I think they're good because you always want more. So like coming on to the end of the stage, like really does like bookend it. Like we've come back on now, we're done. But being in a band, I mean, I don't know. I think there's just something inside me that just wants to be like, look, we're not going to do an encore for this reason. Like we're just going to end the set now, like because this is how it's meant to end. Like it's supposed to end here. So I don't know. I kind of have two views on it. I mean, should we ever get to the point where people are demanding encores from us, Paul? Like we'll probably probably have a different view on it then. But yeah, that's kind of my 2 cents on it.
I feel like they've become a bit of a joke. Like every band recently I've been to see that's done an encore have been like, "See you in a minute." Like, it's just sort of like almost a cliche now, almost.
Yeah, it is actually. It's funny actually. We did. I'm filming this podcast and asking that question today because I went and saw the Strokes in London yesterday, and they literally did. Just say Julian, I think, said something along the lines of, "Oh yeah, this is our last song before we do the whole fake encore stuff." And then eventually, when they come back on after quite a long pause, he was just like, "I wish I hadn't bothered saying we're going to do an encore now." And it's just like, "Oh, okay." So it's just it has become. I think it. Yeah, I think you touched on it. Well, if it's organic, then it's fantastic because obviously that's the connection between the band and the audience, and obviously, the show's been fantastic. We want more. Then it's great, but when it is forced and just part of the routine, then I think it has got to the point now where you just like, well, come on. We all know that you're coming back on. I've got a train to catch.
Yeah. We speed this up. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. No, interesting. And it's been absolutely lovely talking with you both. Obviously, there's so much exciting stuff coming up for the band, and I can't wait to follow your career and to see where you go. We always chuck the last message just back to the guests. So, to both of you, what would be your last message for the listeners today?
I think just check out the records. Like, I think this is just complete and utter kind of purity from four guys that are trying to do something a little bit different and kind of blend some genres and the whole mystique of like the image and stuff. So this is like the penultimate culmination of all that stuff that's been around for the last 3-4 months. And I just hope people are into it. And if you're not, that's cool too. But give it a shot.
Yeah, come see us live. Come down and have a party.
Yeah, and I would definitely echo both of those sentiments. So yeah, listeners, make sure you follow the band on social media, check out the EP when it's out, and obviously pop along to a show in the future for sure. Thank you both, obviously, so much for coming on and talking to me.
Thanks for having us, man. All the best.
Well, thank you everyone for listening. I really do hope you enjoyed that chat there with Def of Me. Make sure you check out their latest single, Halo, on our Discover New Music playlist, and of course follow the band across social media to stay up to date with everything coming from them. You can also stay up to date with Full Pelt. We are on Facebook at Full Pelt and on Twitter and Instagram at Full Pelt Music. And finally, if you would, please do hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, wherever you're watching or listening.